lunacy. It's madness. It's madness. It's madness. It's madness. Lunacy by Joe Fury. It's madness.
Hello! I am, of course, the international superstar, Joe Fury, and I'm so glad to be here, coming to you all the way from Bali, yes, from my Balinese retreat, my Bali getaway, yes, undisclosed location where I can get away from my fans and really relax and maybe get a massage and have a drink with a pineapple in it. It's fantastic. So I am here, though, taking time out of my beautiful relaxation to introduce my longtime friend, Chad Damiani. Yes, thank you. Can we have some applause, Boney? Yes, Chad Damiani is a huge superstar of the comedy scene in Los Angeles, and I know him from way back in the World Wrestling Federation where he used to be an announcer and I was a wrestling fluffer. Yes, I would fluff up the wrestlers' muscles and get them out into the ring. And that was way back then. And we used to have so much fun together. So I just want to say shout out to Chad. Thank you for being on Lunch Therapy. And I'm going to get that money to you. You take Venmo, right? Just give me my Venmo and I'll send it right away. But signing off from the Balinese retreat, I am Joe Fury. Is that it? That'll hold him for a little while. Oh, nice still. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 All right, welcome to Lunch Therapy. I'm your host, Joel Marshall. This is Interview Friday. For those of you that don't know, Lunch Therapy happens twice a week. Tuesdays, it's a variety show. I bring on a comedian. We riff on topics of the day, generally really fun, upbeat kind of topics. We try and keep away from the politics. This is a break from the crap. And on Fridays, we interview amazing performers and writers and philosophers and people that I just find super interesting. Today is no exception. We have the incredible performer Chad Damiani on the show, as Joe Fury mentioned. There's a toucan behind me. Yes, Claster fan. Great to see you, Claster fan. Jose Salas says, because Batman gets confused and beats both of them up, this must be a thread that I missed. That is a cool bird. I got a cool bird on the show who is also a clown. Toucan looks like Tookie from George of the Jungle, from the movie George of the Jungle, not to be confused with the cartoon. I want to say thank you to all the Patreons. Patreons, can't do this show without you. Mike Knox, Todd Lee, Camila Lopez, Robert Lopez, Jay Patterson, of course, who's a regular on the show, Pam Palmieri, Neil Phillip, Seth Word, and of course, Mary Marks. Thanks so much. You can go to patreon.com/Joel Marshall and please help us put this show on, because it doesn't happen with an empty wallet. I'm a clown. Am I a clown? Do I amuse you? Yes, Howard. We have a super duper clown on today. And thank you for your reference from Goodfellas. Let's get into the breathing. We got a new thing happening here where I have the guest appear during the breathing and the music at the beginning of the show, but they're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to talk. So you're just going to see his face. He's going to do the breathing. And if he talks, he's got a hot mic. I think that Boney's going to come down on him pretty hard. So I don't know. We'll see. Don't go easy on him. This is a new thing. Jose says I'm an irregular on the show and everywhere else. Not enough fiber. Nice. I like it. I like it. I'm clearly all jacked up today, so I'm going to give us a little bit of healing vibrations here. And what we're going to do, let's see, when I'm feeling weighed down by the world, I seek spiritual healing. I wonder if Chad Damiani seeks spiritual healing. It's a good question. Maybe we'll ask him that on the show. Relaxing sounds. Here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to breathe. And you'll see I will be markedly calmer after we breathe. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths. We're going to take it in through the nose, and then we're going to let it out through the toes. So here we go. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. And let it go. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. You can shake it out. One more time, in through the nose. And let it go. Thank you to the Healing Vibrations for presenting this for us. You can go to Healing Vibrations on YouTube and get your relaxation on anytime. I feel better. I'm totally calmer now. Now we're going to do some musical ear therapy. This is Marcel Hutter. He is playing the handpan. I believe he's in Germany, but he travels the world playing the handpan. It's a good place to kind of shake it out. Okay, stretch. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like the shoulder thing too, yeah. Oh, we're gonna stretch out our tongue. Blah. Blah. I shook my headphones right out of my ears. Shake out the hands. A lot of tension in my hands sometimes. Makes it hard to do things. My hands get all floppy like they're fins. Feel pretty good. Thank you, Miss Marcel Hutter, for this wonderful handpan. Now let's get into the show. All right, so here we are. We're going to have Chad Damiani on the show. You have now seen his face. For those of you that don't know, he is a celebrated figure in the Los Angeles comedy scene. I have recently heard about him because I was taking a class from Eric Davis, the Red Bastard, who is a clown here in Los Angeles. And one of my classmates, Catherine Shelton, was telling me all about Chad, what a wonderful clown teacher he is. But also, he is an incredible performer. And I was lucky enough to see his show last Wednesday night. Fantastic show. If you can see it, it is marvelous. I think I saw the very first performance of it. We'll talk about this. Reckless Chad Rubin, XX, which is fantastic. Also, he is the creator and the clown boss of a thing called Stand-Up and Clown, which we're going to talk about, which happens at the Elysian Theater, Stand-Up and Clown. And there's also a podcast where he talks all about clown. And a lot of us outside of the LA area or outside of the clowning world don't even know exactly what clown is and what this modern clown movement is. We've been exploring it on the show. We've had Claire Woolner on the show and Stefan Haves and David Bridell, lots of clowns on the show, Joel Jeske. But I think you're going to find like a whole new entryway into this. I'm actually blown away by what's going on. But anyway, it's a huge movement. Also, Chad was an announcer for the World Wrestling Federation, which is what Joe Fury was referring to early on, and then turned to improv and was part of a duo for like 600 performances. They did improv. So he's like a trained improv master. The duo was called Jetzo. And so much other stuff going on with Chad, like writing for television and acting in television. Let's get into this thing. This is called Interview Friday with Chad Damiani. This is a performance recently that Chad put on at the Elysian Theater. You can see Will Ferrell there and Rory Scoville. We're going to have to ask him about this. This is clown, I believe. I believe this is clown. We're going to find out what it means. I'm so happy to have you on the show. I can't even tell you. I'm like, my palms are sweaty.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I want to begin because I've been listening to your podcast, which is really great. I recommend that to anybody who's interested in performing and stand-up and comedy. But I do want to introduce you to our audience who might not be as familiar with the clown movement in LA. Could you tell us a little bit about the origins of that and what's going on in clown here in Los Angeles at this time? I know it's a big question.
How do I answer that? So we have a scene going on. As I'm talking to you, I think I might switch to a normal background.
Cool.
I feel like my head looks misshapen because I'm using the blur. I don't know if you get that.
Yeah.
I think this is more my actual head. Here we go.
Yeah, we want your actual head. This is not my actual head. I'm using a fake one.
Yeah, it was sort of just, I didn't know where to start or stop because there's no hair. So it's like, we don't know. It could be anything.
I like that. I mean, we could go back to your origin story, but I want to get to that. But at first, I just want to say, okay, so recently you did a podcast. You do these podcasts where just you interview people, but then you also do solo pods.
Right.
Where you talk about clowning. And you kind of define it. The latest one that you did, you go through and you say, like, these are the differences between, say, clown and improv, or clown and stand-up, or clown and comedic acting. Can you give us a few bullet points just so people can have an entry point into clown?
Sure. And I consider myself a modern clown, but I feel like traditional clowns, circus clowns, modern clowns, there is foundational principles that we all sort of, one is no fourth wall, connected to the audience. Another, for me personally, has to come from a place of joy. It has to emanate from joy and happiness. And in this play and connection with an audience, we're also trying to make them happy and joyful. That can look a lot of different ways. Like some of us like haunted houses and roller coasters, and some of us like have a sort of masochistic streak. We like to be teased and tortured, but the intention is that the audience member has fun and it's a joyful experience. And games, we play games with an audience. So we try to collaborate with an audience, and it's not just them transactionally liking or disliking what we're doing. We're trying to find a way that they can be part of the show, or at the very least, there is the appearance that their reactions are affecting the actions that are happening on stage. Lastly, it's usually pretty stupid and dumb. Like that's the last one. You really can't get away from that one. And part of that, they're all tied together. Like if you sort of take all these different fundamental qualities, but the reason it's usually silly and dumb is because it's disarming. It puts us in a childlike place of wonder when we have sort of less walls and obstacles for connection. And also it allows us to mask what we're really trying to do, which sometimes is a little sophisticated, which is these misdirections and these sort of tactics to get the audience to open up more to us. So we disarm them with stupidity to get closer to them.
Oh, I love that. And, you know, there's a feeling when you go to one of these shows, because I've gone to a few now, just in this modern clown kind of movement, and there is a feeling of electricity in the audience because we don't know what's going to happen, and we also don't know what's going to happen to us, like if we're going to be questioned or sat upon, or people are going to climb through the audience, or what's going to happen. And that is a new kind of excitement that I feel from going to the theater, because usually we're sort of voyeurs in the theater. How did this develop? I mean, this has been, you were doing improv for a long time.
I did improv for a long time. I started in the early 2000s and loved it. I was working as a writer at the time. I believe I was in reality TV when I started, but then I moved over to screenwriting and had a whole life. You know, I'm 52, so I had this whole, like, I have all these lives, not just like experiences. And with improv, there is absolutely the whiff, the mild scent of that collaboration, because you are writing on your feet and you get a big laugh for something, and then you're like, oh, they think that's funny. You kind of identify games and the direction you create in based on the audience's reaction, but it's still pretty like hands off, you know, and you can also ignore their input and do whatever you want and hope they come along. And it was around, I guess, 2010 that the clown scene in LA specifically started to blossom. There had been people like David Bridell, who was a guest of yours. They had been doing clown and teaching clown. It wasn't that it didn't exist, but this modern clown movement started to percolate. The Idiot Workshop was really central to that. Another previous guest, Seth Word, one of your Patreons.
One of the Patreons, yeah.
He was involved in that. I was involved in that. John Gilkey is the frontman impresario of that group. And he had come off years of working with Cirque du Soleil and had felt all that rigidity and where clown had gone, which it had become this massive spectacle where there wasn't a lot of room for play and discovery. And the connection was different because now you had 1,000 people. You can't connect with 1,000 people. And so he was starting like a counterculture movement to that. And there were other people too from the Edinburgh fringe scene and the overseas fringe scenes like Deanna Fleischer and Dr. Brown and Eric Davis.
Yeah.
They all were starting to experiment with smaller rooms and more risky behavior. And I had gotten involved in the earliest stages of this in LA. And the duo you mentioned is called Jetzo. So I had been doing improv and not having as much fun as I'd hoped. And I started doing this clown idiot stuff. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to put these principles into improv. And Juzo and we did, I think, about 600, maybe more shows, but we broke every rule that they had taught us. And improv is very set in like the rules of play so that people can work together and agree. And we were just breaking every single rule. We wore costumes. We had musicians. We really celebrated failure. We played with the audience. And that was sort of where I learned my style, like, because it was just so many shows and we were making them up every night. And I kind of found my persona. I found my truth in who the audience sees me as and who I'm most comfortable playing as. Because I think the one thing I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about clown is, despite all the costumes and the silliness and the characters, it is a pursuit of authenticity. Like really seeing a person on stage underneath the costume, underneath the games, like that this person is truly present with you.
Yeah, I like that. That's one thing that I really enjoy about it too, is like, there's a certain amount of that happens with stand-up crowd work, but this takes it to like a whole other level. The person is performing on stage and they are, they're caring about the audience. There's, like you go to a stand-up show and you sit in the front and you're kind of like afraid that somebody's going to pick on you. You get that feeling in a clown show, but you kind of also, with a good clown performer, you feel like you're going to be taken care of. And there's something about that communal feeling that's going on. We're all involved in this show that's happening in this room, and we're all going to be wrapped with attention. And also we're all going to be willing to play. I mean, it's almost like an agreement you have with the audience.
And I think you talked about it earlier, but that excitement before a clown show, for me, part of it is that there's this long established contract with an audience on how an audience is supposed to behave, their passivity in the process. Like they're allowed to cheer or react, but they're not supposed to contribute. And in a good clown show, we create the rules of that show with the audience as it moves forward. And obviously, as the clowns creating shows, we know the games we're going to play and we kind of know where we want to take the audience. But the audience doesn't know what we expect from them when it starts. And so that's fun, right? So you show up and it's like, you don't know what your job is in the show. You don't know what games you're going to play. And you don't know, you might be on stage with the performers. You might be singing songs the whole show. You might have to go outside. And I think that's liberating. Because it only serves the establishment. It only serves the theaters and the comedy clubs and people who want to keep things nice and tight for economic purposes. It only serves them to have set finite rules on how people interact with each other. And we don't care about that stuff. We're definitely anti-capitalist, anti-establishment, and we're looking to kind of just break things any way we can.
I say it's the punk rock of theater. Which I do think that it is. You even call your class
hopefully early punk rock.
Punk rock
early
punk rock, right? Right. Not the commercialized punk rock.
Yeah, not like
rock.
About the first 2 years. The first 2 years.
You liken the beginning of the show, because you said sometimes I like to have the beginning of the show be like where nobody knows what's going on. And it's like pushing a beach ball down in the water till it gets really low and then letting it go. And it comes up like that. Could you explain what you mean by that?
I think there's this misconception with what I would call that is tension, right? Like a dramatic tension, which is great in comedy too.
Yeah.
And the more tension you build, the more I always see it like this beach ball, right? So you're pushing this beach ball underneath the water and pushing it, and you're building energy. Like you're creating energy. The further down you go, the more energy that exists, the more resistance. And I teach quite a bit. And what I think a lot of performers don't recognize is that tension is a greater toil for the audience than the performer. So I think when a performer's on stage and there's that silence and that tension, they get nervous.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you shouldn't be nervous. The audience is the only party in this equation that can't release the tension. Like you can.
Yeah.
Like, so once you recognize that tension is your weapon, your tool, and that the audience will be so grateful when you release it. I have a bit that's one of my more popular solo bits where I wear a bomb vest. It's fake, but it looks real.
Yeah.
Hard to travel with. You might be surprised.
I'm sure.
To shows.
I don't even have to make
Hard
it
to
when
say
you get
I have
there.
a fake bomb vest. I recently just had a new one made that breaks down into parts.
Yeah.
So it takes me about 30 minutes to put it back together. But for a long time, I would only do shows I could drive to because I was just terrified to bring this.
I have enough problems going through the airline with all my equipment, just wires and computer equipment.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to do my show on the road or something. I'm going to show a clip from that, your bomb vest, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, okay.
We should give women a standing ovation. That's good. When they stop having their periods. That way, we can call it menopause. Okay, I'm losing you. Okay. I'm gonna come lose you.
Can you tell us something? That's cool. Can you tell us what that character is? And I'm going to get us out of the beach here. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, it was such a big
I know,
switch.
it's so nice. Yeah.
So this applies to what we're talking about with tension.
Yeah.
And when I first started wanting to do the same way I brought clown to improv in my own way, I'm not saying I'm the first, but I was definitely one of the people that, if you look back, really committed to this idea of bringing this influence of clown into an improvised show that we did all over the place. I then sort of put my focus on stand-up because there are definitely just amazing stand-ups that have clown qualities in their work.
Yeah.
Like, you can go back as far as Steve Martin or go back to the vaudeville days and all like Red Skeleton and really big physical performers. But I wanted to take a look at what we were doing now and say like, well, how can we get an audience that is really conditioned to respond one way? Like a stand-up audience, man, you want to talk about an audience that has been put into like a lemming category of like, we know our job. If we say anything, you'll yell at us kind of a situation.
Yeah. It's a very established relationship. The comedian.
It's established relationship.
Yeah.
Again, all benefiting the club, the establishment, the comedian. It's not really the best situation for the audience. I mean, if it was the best situation for the audience, it would be if we went back to vaudeville.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me that 20 people talking at you is better than an acrobat, a singer, a dancer, right? That's the best show, but it doesn't serve the club because it requires more wrangling. They want performers to just fit nicely into boxes.
I mean, I don't even know how Gallagher used to smash watermelons at the Comedy Store or wherever he used to do that. I don't even imagine what that did to they probably hated that in the beginning.
Oh, I would have to guess at some point he just had to book his own venues at some point.
Yeah.
But they're resistant because it affects their bottom line. The more,
of course, they don't want to clean up watermelon seeds all night.
So then the challenge becomes, as a clown, knowing that there's certain things that they just won't tolerate. How can you bring clown spirit into a stand-up club? And so just like I did with improv, I started looking at stand-up and being like, what are the rules I can break? And the first thing that I played with was like reading jokes from a notebook as if they weren't mine. And I was like, because that seems like a recipe for disaster, right? Like the whole thing about, right? Because you're supposed to be so confident.
Wait, is that what you did on America's Got Talent? You did that. You did this, right? Am I
jumping
ahead
in the
story?
Seconds.
Yeah. Because I watched that and I was like, this is really interesting. But yeah, that's what
that
you were
was
doing.
a while, and I'll definitely tell that story. That was a wild case of me being then put back into the system, like creating an act outside the system,
Yes.
then showing up at a TV taping and having them essentially try to put me back into it to fit their production schedule, and it being disastrous. But so I tried a bunch of versions of this, and then I was thinking about this issue of tension, and what I wanted to do was create the most tension possible, the most like the worst situation a comedian could be in. And I sort of just one day was like, oh my God, if I came in a bomb vest, that audience is going to be like so tense.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, in that bit, I play a police officer, by the way, which was more popular pre-pandemic. The act has changed in a good way, because now I'm also like a shitty cop. But so the idea is, I start the bit by standing in the back of the theater and yelling, "Nobody panic," which is, of course, what makes everybody panic.
God.
And then I have the host say, "It's okay. I know this guy. He's a cop." So I release a little tension there, and like the host is not nervous.
Yeah.
So, but the audience is really tense now. So the beach ball is pretty low, and I work my way to the stage, and I just hold them in this arrested state. I'm giving them all this information, and finally, what happens is this psychopath. The whole point is, I'm in this bomb vest because, like the movie Speed, a psychopath is making me do it. I don't want to do it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Get it.
And that allows me also to be the hero of the problem I create, right? Because I'm the only one who can save them from this thing I made up. And so they're usually pretty laughing a little bit just with the setup of like, you know, I woke up with this vest on. They're making me run around LA doing crazy things. And then what the psychopath tells me to do is I have to do like essentially a tight five. Like I have to do stand up that he's written. And
everybody has to laugh. Real laugh. Does everybody have to laugh in order to save your life?
That's what becomes the game, is that like, I don't care about it being funny, but like, I'm worried if this set doesn't go well for the safety of the audience. So like, this is the thing we talked about. It's a very dumb idea, but underneath it, there's a sophistication in how I'm manipulating the audience, because I'm like, oh, I just want you to laugh because I love you. But if you watch that clip, the thing I do with the joke is I stretch it out so long. Like I break all the rules of telling a joke. I speak in these sort of these little fragments, and that makes it hard for the audience to get ahead of me in the joke. Because if I was speaking faster, they actually might figure out my punchline.
Yeah.
Because I'm speaking slow, now I've completely
you've broken it up.
Broken it up, and I'm forcing them to focus so hard on this very stupid joke. So they laugh harder when they finally get the punchline, because they're fully invested in like, what is he saying? And like, this is the kind of like, in general, for me as a clown, this is the stuff of greatest interest to me, is this sort of the psychology of play, the psychology of getting an audience and breaking their composure and getting them to play and experience comedy in a different way, and so that they can have a laugh that comes from their gut. Like it's like such a natural primal reaction, and it isn't at all an extension of intellect.
You know, it's interesting because in a clown show, you get people laughing, very naturally. You don't get any of the laughs that are like, ha, ha, you know, that laugh, where you kind of are like, you intellectually might think it's funny, but you're not actually like losing control of your functionality.
Right.
So that's one of the things that's really incredible about it. So, hold on a sec. Yeah, we got to do that. We got to do the bumper. So, you were doing this, and then how did stand-up and clown come out of this?
So this was all happening at kind of the same time. So I was in Jetzo for many years. That was my primary focus. We traveled all over. We did 100 or more shows a year, which in improv is hard. Like we'd have to travel places. We had to produce 3 or 4 shows a month just for ourselves to make sure we could get up and be seen that much. But I wanted that much time on stage to figure it out. And then while I was in Jetzo, I started working with The Merge, which again, Seth Word, who's been a guest on here, and this group called Dr. Brown Builds a Show, where a bunch of superstars in that group. But so I was in all these different ensembles creating work, but I was one of the players. I wasn't the clown boss. I wasn't the director.
Mm-hmm.
In clown, there is a clown boss or an auguste or like a white face clown. We play a lot with authority. And the reason we do this is because if there's an authority at the top, it could make the clowns below them seem like underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and this is the sneaky part, the audience is like, thank God somebody's in charge, right? Because you have all this chaotic
Mayhem.
energy,
Yeah.
mayhem, and you just want to know that somebody can stop it. So
Yeah.
you're kind of walking this line between
That's
hero and
interesting.
villain.
Yeah.
And you eventually lose. Like the authority always loses. But through the show, they also keep the show together enough that the audience does not feel like they're going to be held hostage by maniacs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had started doing a lot more teaching. I guess this is about 8-9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And as a teacher, just my natural personality is I'm come from an Italian family. We tease each other. Like that's how we show love and this and that. So we were having so much fun in the classes, and I was really roasting the students.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would really make fun of them because I wanted them to know that like there's love in failure and there's love in frailty.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to point out that they weren't very graceful or they had bad ideas and then their classmates to laugh, it shows them it's like, oh, these things I was so desperate to hide are actually things that endear me to people. And I just had this idea around, I guess, 2018, where I was like, these classes are so fun. I bet I can sell more classes if I do like an open workshop and an audience can watch me make fun of students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where it started.
Oh.
And it was very loose.
Yeah.
It would just be like, we'd walk in, I'd be like, hey, thanks for coming to the open workshop. And then I'd put people up and just, they would perform. And then I'd be like, what is this? Like it's very, but I just knew very early that something was there that could be even more presentational and performative.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that show up until the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the pandemic happened and we were all sidelined, that's when myself and a group of people started something called Clown Zoo. And Clown Zoo was this show we did at the park where, since everyone had to wear masks, we wore theatrical masks. We'd perform outside. We did it every week at the old zoo in those. So for those of you watching who are not from LA,
Griffith Park.
Yeah, it's a Griffith Park. It's these great stone enclosures. They're like little theaters. And I was, again, a player, and I was working with Natalie Palomides, who's an amazing clown. And I was kind of coaching her on how to be the clown boss because she's such a huge, wonderful performer. But then she wasn't feeling well. And so I was like, well, I'll do it because I do it anyway. And I created this character named Father Bone. And then it was like, that was the first time I'm like, oh, I can perform this character. Like, I don't have to just be the authority that makes everyone look good, but my insults, my jokes, I can embody something bigger and be this almost commedia level character.
Yeah.
And coming out of the pandemic, I was like, when that was done, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to mix these two things together, these open workshops and Clown Zoo. And I'm just going to play myself times 1,000. I'm just going to be me, the meanest version of me I can be. And I was like, who could I make fun of that the audience would enjoy the most? And I was like, stand-up comics.
Yeah. So you chose stand-up comics. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Well, they have so much control.
Yeah.
They have so much power. They rely so much on intellect and words.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if I get them up, the audience, it'll be electric. And it worked from the first show. It was so crazy. And it's evolved so much over the last 2+ years. But right off the bat, there were just these moments that were so intense, but joyful.
Yeah.
But just, you saw these people that normally when they're on stage have so much composure and control, making complete idiots of themselves, getting lost. And it was such a revelation. And then that was like, oh, this is its own thing. And that show is really what established me, because I've been doing stuff and building community and teaching, but that's the show where I became like the clown boss.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot to be gained there. Also, comedians, I think, are so used to being kind of in this box where they have to like get a laugh every few seconds, and you know, they're so it becomes a tight box that you're in, where you're doing your tight 5, your tight 6, your tight 30, whatever it is, and you start to feel like you're boxed in a little bit. And this must be very freeing for comedians, for stand-ups. And stand-ups are also very used to being on stage and also used to being laughed at. So they probably really kind of enjoy it, I would imagine. Is that what we were looking at with Will Ferrell at the beginning? Was that?
No, that was a show so this year, through Stand Up and Clown, a couple years ago, I ended up working with Rory Scoville, who has since become like a really good friend and a collaborator. I was a huge fan before I ever worked with him. Yeah. Just loved his stand-up.
I loved him on the show Physical, too. Did you ever see that show Physical that he was on?
Oh, yeah. So he's great in that show.
Yeah.
His show, Danny's, really good on YouTube, if
cool.
It hasn't been seen quite as much.
Yeah.
But I just loved his work, and there was like a certain danger and risk. You know, he would do those improvised hours. Mm-hmm. He started doing shows at the Elysian, which is my home theater where I teach and do stand-up and clown. And it was only in the first few months of the show, and I asked if they would ask him if he'd do the show. And so, you know, he's just a nice guy. Yeah. And he agreed to it, not knowing what it was. And he went up and he ate a bag of shit. Like,
really?
Oh, yeah.
So
but
funny.
He loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it.
So funny. And sometimes people, I expect them to go one way and they go the other way. And that's.
Oh, well, you know what? It was just that he tried to outsmart the show.
Yeah. Well, it's just a tendency, I think. Right?
Oh, yeah. We always lean on our intellect. We lean on, and also we have, despite the fact, and I say this to my students all the time, despite the fact that we go through life almost getting everything wrong all the time, how many times do you think to yourself like, oh, you know what, I'll just tell this to my partner and it'll be okay. Or, you know, like, oh, I'll just talk to my boss and do this. Or like you have a plan for the future and it just goes spirals. And like, we still every day wake up with this extreme confidence in our competence.
Yeah.
And the fact is we get most stuff wrong, you know, like, so people always rely on that confidence. And, you know, he bombed, but when I say he bombed, the audience loved it.
Yeah.
They were like, he got huge laughs.
Of course.
And at that point that started this friendship. And also I started doing stuff regularly on something called The Whatever Show, which was his show at the Elysian. And he would bring in huge names like Conan O'Brien and Zach Galifianakis and Kumail Nanjiani. Yeah.
He clearly loves working with you. You can tell when you see the clips of you two together.
Oh,
you guys just are like a chemistry experiment gone wild. You know what I mean?
We're opposites who think exactly the same way. It's a very unique thing to happen. But we created a show together. We were going to build like a show to travel with. But then after the first show, we made this a terrible but like super joyful decision that we were going to do actually a 6-part like serialized work in progress show, which is so stupid because the work in progress show is to make one show, and we made 6 different shows. And we put so much time. I just saw him yesterday, and we were laughing about like we slaved over we put so much time. We spent every penny we made on the shows, and he is friends with Will Ferrell. And had been asking him all the way back from the Whatever Show days to come in and do something. Yeah. And, you know, when you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars and things happen like, sorry, I have to fly to Rome. Like that's the kind of like, that's the kind of shit they tell you.
Oops.
Like, and it's true.
Yeah.
And Will is a very sweet guy. And I think he felt bad. And he had been working with Rory on something else entirely. And he had asked Rory, when's the last of these shows? And Rory gave him this date and he goes, I'm going to be at that show.
Oh, wow.
And I still thought he was going to cancel till the last minute, but he didn't. And he showed up 6 o'clock before. That was our last show of this run of shows.
Yeah.
And Rory and I work together, and I kind of create most of the games for the show. So it's just Rory and I trying to win comedy. But it really is just us doing a variety of improvised stuff and a lot of clown games that I kind of create. And we created this whole lineup of things that he would do. And the joke was that we were in an alternate reality where Will was the third member of our team, like of our sketch team.
Yeah.
And Will showed up And I said, I'm happy to walk you through this whole show.
Yeah.
Or we can just go out there and you can be surprised by everything and act like you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And like a boss, he was just like, I'll do that.
Of course.
He goes, but like also it's super ballsy.
Oh, totally.
Like
I should actually have played that clip after we talked about it so people could understand what the hell was going on. But I just wanted to like show because it was so much fun. But yeah, his willingness to play is, and that's probably why he's, as successful as he is. His willingness.
You could feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, wow, look at that guy, man. He is punk rock as well. All right. Little bumper time here. I want to show a clip of you directing, and this little clip that I have here.
Look up at us, Brandon Evil.
I put you up here and I've praised you both. But let me tell you something about stars when they get too hot. They immediately implode, and they suck in everything around them, and it goes dark. All you need to do is lean on your mutual insecurities, the things that are broken about both of you. Just try too hard, care too much, and create art from a place of fear and desperation.
So that was awesome. So yeah, so clearly you're pushing performers or encouraging performers to go beyond their comfort zone, perhaps, and into that state of play. Can you speak to us a little bit about what it's like to have people come into your workshops who maybe don't do clown or any kind of improv? Is that something that you enjoy?
I love it. And so often the people who have no aspirations to even perform, they just are curious about the work. They're the funniest ones, almost always. And they're funny in a way that like isn't as quantifiable. Like the audience is just laughing or their classmates are just laughing because they're inherently funny. They're lost. They have no ambition. So the thing about a lot of performers is we grow up as class clowns, like especially comedic performers. Mm-hmm. And so much of being a class clown is control. It's controlling the narrative. Yeah. So even though it's presented as, no, they're trying to tell you exactly how to feel about them and when to feel it. And then, and those people often become stand-ups, which is also very much about
control.
I'm directing all of this. You're here to have this transactional relationship with me where you laugh when I say funny things. And they come into a clown class and they are just gobsmacked. They don't know what to do because there is no control. Like the thing that gets the audience to laugh is all the moments that you have no control over.
Yeah.
So I would say, like you'd be shocked if you're just like someone who works behind a camera or works in an accounting firm, or you're probably going to come in and be like delightful in this class because you literally don't know what you're doing. And clown is essentially just chasing a state of play where you are constantly that naive that you could go out there and make all the bad choices without getting ahead of yourself because you think you know the right answer.
That's something I said when we went to your show the other day. Kamala became a part of the show. My wife Kamala, and she was in the purple furry jacket and she was representing all women. And I was like, she said, I don't know why, he picked me or whatever. And I just said, because you're like willing to play. And I think maybe people can see that when they're performers, they can see that. And I also think sometimes if someone picks me out in the audience and starts to talk to me, sometimes I'm too, mischievous or maybe I've got some kind of, it's like I'm not as good to be chosen in the audience because sometimes I want to fuck with them. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I want to fuck with them back.
Control back.
Yeah, and I think it's me trying to take control, and I got to let go of that control as a performer because when you perform a lot in your life, you get you start to become a little bit of a, especially if you're like a type A personality or whatever, which I don't know whether I am or not, but I feel like, I got to make sure this thing goes right. And
yeah, you want to take a little more
and that's up
ownership,
here.
and that's definitely a skill that I've cultivated over many, many years.
Yeah.
Is you want to find the person in the audience who is eager to please, but has no desire to be on stage.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a weird mix, right?
That is a weird
And
mix.
like, it's like they're looking at you, they're present, they're connected, they have all the qualities of a performer
Yeah.
in terms of they're interesting, they're open to you, but you also realize that they just want to do a good job.
Yeah.
Like, they're not like, I'm going to steal the show.
Mhm.
And like in the show you saw, I kind of auditioned like in a very sly way. I auditioned a bunch of different men
Mm-hmm.
by teasing through these different men, and
Yeah.
it's designed that way so I can find the one who I feel like will mess up the best.
Yeah. Yeah. You found
You
one.
know?
You found one. Now
Oh, yeah.
everybody after the show was like, was that guy a plant? The guy, Todd, was he a
No.
plant? And I was like, I don't think so. I said, maybe it's somebody he knows. But
I did know Todd.
yeah.
I knew him from Denver. He did take a clown class with me, and he's a great clown. But I didn't think he was going to end up being the person I went with for this part of the show that's later, where it requires more cooperation.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be a fun thing because he was in from Denver, and I was like, oh, I'll just use like this will be fun. He'll go tell his friends that he got to be in the show.
Yeah.
But then it was very clear that he was drunk, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, he's my guy.
That's what Kamala
He's my
said. That guy
fucking
was
guy.
so drunk.
Yeah, the guy was wasted,
But
and I was
you
like,
know-
oh yeah, he's
Yeah,
terrible.
You
He's
would
perfect.
think people you'd want to stay away from that, because like in a comedy club, when the guy's drunk and he's trying to be the comedian from the audience, it's like you kind of want to get away from that guy. But you embraced it, and he ended up being very good. And also there were moments like the moment with the father, where he kind of let go and just was the kid, and was actually. And I
Yeah.
was like, that guy's some kind of performer, because the ability to. Just
He's a
do
super talented.
Yeah.
He has beautiful presence on stage. But if he wasn't drunk, I would have never picked him because he probably would have tried to steal the show a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
And he's actually good enough to do it. So I was
Yeah.
like, no way I'm going to let. But he was so shit faced.
Yeah, yeah. It was so interesting. There was an element of magic to the show too, which I think is interesting as well. Were you ever like a magician? I know there were like just little tricks here and there. Did you ever study magic, or is that something that you were ever interested in?
I didn't, but I've seen a couple examples of like I've worked with a lot of magicians. It's been a while, but I used to do a lot of work with Piff the Magic Dragon
Oh, yeah.
from who's at the Flamingo in Vegas.
Really?
Wonderful comedy, probably the best comedy magician I think working right now. And I do try to find ways. I do feel like clown should feel a little like a magic show in the sense that it's very presentational and there's very big promises being made.
Yeah.
It just happens in clown we don't live up to the promises, and in magic
Right.
they do. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
But I do like to find little sleights of hand. Like I'll fabricate props, like to create just moments where it feels like a magical moment in the show.
Mhm.
And there were a couple last night. There was a couple in this new show. There's about 3 or 4, and I'm actually working on 2 more because I just when you show it's like you can show a baboon magic. Did you know that?
Oh, I've seen it on YouTube, and they're like, oh,
So good.
I love that.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't want any of my comedy to not play for a baboon.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You want to be able to play to the baboons.
Yeah.
Okay, this show is called Lunch. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. This show is called Lunch Therapy, and we talk a little bit about keeping our mind right as performers. You've had a long, extensive experience in performing. Is there anything that you do to keep your creativity going? Maybe calm your nerves at times? Is there anything that you do like meditation or yoga or anything like that?
I do believe in I do stretch every day.
Mhm.
I take long walks with my dog.
Yeah.
I've been performing so long, and I have been performing improvised and semi-improvised stuff for so long. And I got to tell you, you do it to a certain point, and it's just like you just stop worrying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's scarier sometimes when we're always trying scripted stuff, like it's like, but like when you have to rely on just being in the moment. I have a switch I can pull. I had without going into detail and naming names,
Mm-hmm.
there was someone I worked with quite a bit who was dealing with some mental wellness issues in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of extreme anxiety, at times some paranoia. There would be shows that we'd have where seconds before the show, they would say to me, I think I'm having a panic attack. And then I would get so upset. And then we'd go out and they would not have a panic attack, but I was a
Yeah.
coiled spring.
Yeah.
And I do feel like even though that wasn't a healthy situation,
Uh-huh.
I feel like it taught me how just to take a moment and understand that our body, if we allow it,
Mm-hmm.
can reset itself in a
Mm-hmm.
second.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like, just like we can fall asleep in a second,
Mm-hmm.
just like we can be scared and like totally terrified. And I just developed this ability that like take a deep breath through my nose,
Mm-hmm.
usually look at a wall,
Mm-hmm.
and I need less than 5 seconds, and my body just resets itself
Yeah.
before I walk out on stage and lets me play and lets me just be present with zero expectation. But that happened also because I'm also a widower,
Mm.
and going through something that traumatic where every day you have to like deal with the worst possible event.
Horrible.
Everything's the worst
Mhm.
every day. And you're like, oh, and again, I can only speak to this from the performance side.
Mm-hmm.
That's the safest time of your day when you're on a stage.
Yeah.
That's like the time where you might get bad news when you walk off, but no one's going to hold up a phone and be like, oh, it's like literally going into a space where you are cut off from all the bad things that are externalized around you, and you're free. And like, so the combination of working with someone who kind of put me in a position where I had to learn how to find balance,
Mm-hmm.
and also experiencing the very worst that life has to offer,
Yeah.
kind of made me realize that like performance is this gift, and it's a little bit of free space, and I needed to fully always take advantage of it.
I love that. One of the other things that's interesting about clown is that you develop shows in front of an audience, which is different from like a play. I mean, we might have like previews in a play, but the show like when we went and saw your show, the person came out and said, this is the first time this has been performed. It might be funny. It might not. Let's see what happens. And is that something you've done in your whole life where you've rehearsed in front of audiences? And is that something that you find more beneficial than rehearsing in private and then showing the perfect show?
It's not, I started like everybody else. I did theater in college, and we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed scripted plays. I wrote plays in New York. I was a starving/struggling
That's
artist.
like you started as a playwright, right?
Yeah. And
amazing.
it was very traditional. I think I started doing improv because there was an appeal because I was working,
Yeah.
that I could just do some practice. Like, you just kind of practice forms, but then you just go out and make shows up. And it was like, oh, of course this is appealing to people.
Yeah.
It doesn't involve all these, and with improv, for better or for worse,
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly for worse, they also kind of prep the audience like, hey, they're just making this up. Like, I think what I hope in clown is that an audience comes and goes, hey, they're really hoping this works.
Yeah.
But it might, like, so if it doesn't, just know this is devastating, like in a funny way.
Yeah.
And yeah, once I was introduced to the idea of building in front of an audience, and then trusting the discoveries an audience acknowledges, as opposed to what you intellectually decide is funny or not.
Yes.
I was sold. Sold.
I love that. Do you think that your body has its own, do you think that there's the brain and then your body has its own mind?
I think there is what I would call a lapse in translation.
Yeah.
It's sort of like imagining, like, it's like if you're watching like a French film and someone's like, in a split second, this French film will be translated into English, then back into French. Like, the body gets these orders from the brain,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to interpret them, and often the orders are not clear. Like the order is
That's true.
be graceful, right? Like,
Yeah.
or the order is let them take you seriously.
Yeah.
And then your body has to figure out what the hell that means.
My God, you know how like when I was a little kid, I used to sleep on a bunk bed, and my friend would come over and knock on the window, and we'd go run around at night. So one night I was sleeping on the bunk bed, and he just popped up with his face and was just like this, and it scared the crap out of me. But instead of like fighting or fleeing, I just went like that, and I think that was one of those. And he thought that was hilarious, of course. But that was one of those moments where the brain says, danger, danger, and the body doesn't know what the message is.
I have a best friend since middle school named Tony Martin. And when we were in our 20s, when I was working in wrestling and making better money than I make now at 25, we bought a condo together in Philadelphia on Penn's Landing area, which is like right on the water next to the Ben Franklin Bridge. And he's like a very agile guy. And one night he was out late and he forgot his keys. And so this condo that we had, there was a courtyard with all this beautiful ironwork. And he like a monkey climbed up this ironwork.
Oh my God.
And jumped onto my balcony.
Yeah.
To let himself in. And what he didn't know was I had taken a huge edible that night. Oh, no. And I had also been like watching, this is so stupid, but I've been watching Cinemax After Dark when I fell asleep. And even though it was like just a stupid, it was called The Sex Files. It was like the X Files, but it's called The Sex Files. So it was all about aliens.
Skinemax,
right. Yeah. And so I've been watching Skinemax when I fell asleep, and it was about aliens. And so he came in and I didn't have that door even locked because why would I? It's like the third story.
Yeah.
And when he came in, all I remember is having a nightmare that an alien had come into I didn't remember this incident, but he came in and I guess he said, "Chad, it's me. It's cool." And I sat up like super like almost like the Undertaker from wrestling. And I was buck naked, and I guess my hair was standing straight up, and I just started going screaming like this high pitched scream, and I'm like a big guy, and so then I guess I stopped doing it, and he was like, "It's okay," and then I kind of looked around, but I was clearly still stoned, and then I just started doing it again. I was like, well. I remember this nightmare, and then I remember like at 6 a.m. in the morning hearing I didn't know what it was, but when I find out later, he couldn't stop laughing for like he called me at 9 a.m., woke me up, and I didn't understand a word he said because he was laughing so hard. And then at 10:30 he came home, and he was like face ruddy with tears. I was like, "What's going on?" And he's trying to tell me the story. They sent him home from his job as a pharmaceutical rep because he had been laughing for 3 hours at work, and they were like, "Just go home," because he was like, it's the funniest thing he'd ever seen in his life, So the body is funny, is I guess the point of that story.
Do you think that is what you're going for with the clown? Kind of
oh my
laughter?
God, that's like a dream there.
That's like the dream,
like,
right?
So like such a natural, the thing about clown is, you can define it a million different ways, but the moment you're trying to capture is just being completely seen in a moment that you would otherwise hide, and letting people see it, like just letting people see you completely off guard, like the you that exists when other people aren't there to judge. And like, that's the jokes and humor we're chasing. So yeah, like there's and then the challenge is to reproduce those moments, right? To like, if you want to have a piece that you can do over and over again, how do we live in these moments of pure discovery and wonder, even though we know they're coming? Like, and that's just that's why clowns are such great actors, because like that's the thing that we work constantly. Yeah,
that element of surprise in yourself, surprising yourself, or being alone in public, which is what a lot of times what actors try to do as well. How do you? I'm just going to. We have to end pretty soon, but I just want to ask you this: in your workshops, so you have these workshops, and down in the show notes, there's a link to your link tree in case people want to take a workshop with you.
Oh yeah, and there are some spots for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah,
So
2 weeks
that's
from now.
good.
So yeah, it's Saturday and Sunday at UCB from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Both Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, sign up. It seems like it's going to be a fantastic thing. And also, I'm wondering, what type of a posture do you take as a teacher? Like, you're such a giving, warm person, and then you tell me you're also this clown boss that orders people around. Is there some kind of balance between the two in your workshops?
I'm really mean in my workshops, but like,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Take Will Ferrell, who we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
right? He has this history of playing a lot of these super bombastic, seemingly unlikable characters that, they're misogynists. It's Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
It's Ron Burgundy. And I do believe this, and I'm not putting myself in the category of Will. I mean, he's the GOAT.
Oh, go ahead. Just do it.
I mean, I did carry him through that show.
Take your space.
No, I was kidding.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think the key to being mean is that they see a sweet person that cares about, like when you have a relative who teases you, there's like always like this inherent sweetness, or it's abuse, right? Like, so if we have an uncle that we love who always makes fun of us, it's like, you just understand that underneath that is someone who cares very much about you, and they're giving you a lot of attention out of from a place of affection. So I do treat my intensives like I treat shows. Like, I look at that like, you're going to be playing with me for 8 hours, and it's not going to be a class where we're just going through the motions. I'm going to be there making fun of you, teasing you. If you, by the way, make the audience laugh, you got one over on me, and then you get to be the hero, right? Like,
great.
I want them to feel that feeling of like being loved for failing and winning.
Yeah.
And it does involve like safe practices. And what I mean by that is, when we start the workshop, we all get in a circle. I go through all these rules about being safe and taking care of each other. And then I let them know that I'm about to blow this whistle. And when I do, I'm the clown boss, and we're going to start playing a little rougher. But if it's not fun for you, just say it's not fun. Like, we're never trapped in our own imaginations. We're never trapped in the play, like any of this stuff, acting, writing. Like, if art is ever a labor, then you have to step back and ask yourself, what is going wrong?
Yeah.
Because art is the one time that we have, art, games, play. This is the one time we have in our lives to give ourselves permission for like unfettered joy, like just absolute happiness. And if it becomes anything else, like if you have a sports fan who like can't function because their team loses, like, you got to take a step back, my friend.
You're not doing it right.
Something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
You're not doing it right.
It's true. I feel that way about clown too, that it's almost like a sporting event. There's the parameters, there's pre-written script or whatever, but there's also, you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to win. I feel like sports is one of the greatest theater there is. I mean, because, and it's also the most popular too. I mean, it'll fill huge stadiums week after week after week, or coliseums or whatever. I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. We're going to have to end this now because we're run over time, but this has just been a real gift to have you on. I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to exploring your work more.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for everyone who contributed via chat. That was fun to see stuff pop up. That was really cool.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. All right, now we're going to take a dance break, and it is what we do is we play a song from YouTube, somebody covering a well-known song, and then we just dance around, and then the show is over. So
will it just fade out as we dance?
It'll kind of just end at one point when Boney
smash cut.
Yes, exactly. My assistant decides when it's over, and we just do the dancing. And
That sounds
let me
good.
just
Let's do
see.
it.
Oh, Catherine is there. Happy lunchtime, Joel, Chad.
Oh, I know
is-
Catherine.
Yeah, she's the
Hi.
one that introduced me to you when I was over there at the Elysian. All right, here we go. Dance break time. I hope you all will dance out there with us.
You ain't got no kind of feeling inside. What I got will show enough set your stuff off right. You refuse to put anything before your pride. And what I got will knock your pride aside. Tell something good. Tell that you like it, yeah. Tell me something good. Ooh. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell that you love me, yeah. Ain't got no time, that's what you're known to say. I'll make you wish there were 48 hours to each day. Yeah. Problem is you ain't been loved like you should. And what I got will sort of do you good. Tell me something good. Ooh. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me that you like it, yeah. Tell me something good. Ooh. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me that you love me, yeah. Tell me something good.